Hello there, welcome back to Pontypool Golf Club. My name is Leon Warren, PGA professional, and got an interesting subject to cover today. One of our members has asked, put a request in and asked about discussing T-pegs and the benefits of T-pegs and how to use T-pegs effectively. So I thought I'd have a two-way scenario here where we're going to talk you through a few peg options and what's out there, what's to choose from. And the second bit is how to use the T-peg effectively in your golf game. We all get very reliable on a T-peg, and we have done from day one, and they are an important tool to us when we're playing golf. It can give you a lot of confidence in teeing off. So first things first, let's go through an array of what pegs are available to us. There's wooden, plastic. You tend to find nowadays, or recently anyway, with the environmental things we're trying to do with looking after things a lot better, than bamboo tees have now become the latest thing. Bamboo's grows much quicker, much more accessible, and it's actually a little bit stronger than your traditional wooden tee peg, which I've got here in my right hand. I would suggest that's probably the way it's going to go with bamboo. Plastic, we're trying to get away from if we can, and plastic there's a bit of choice out there at the moment with T-pegs in terms of plastic, but we're trying to encourage people now to move over to sort of bamboo. Now, I tend to like wooden T-pegs. I've used them from dot one, and you'll find a lot of professionals and tour players and good players like to use wooden pegs. It's been an historic thing for me, really. I feel always very happy to use a wooden peg. I can play around with its height and its adjustability, easy to get in the ground. I like to keep the colour white and neutral. And for me, it's just something that I find that I've been really comfortable to use. Obviously, the negative is with wood, it does break over time, and its lifespan is very short. But just make sure you've got plenty of pegs, and that does help. I also use or collect sometimes wooden pegs that are broken right at the neck there, very short in length. We can recycle these and use them as using off the par 3s, which I'll explain to you in a moment or two. The plastic market is obviously more durable, it lasts longer, easier to spot with the colours. And this particular one I've got here is the Castle tee, we call it, shaped like a castle tower. And they're designed in a way that you push into the ground and it can only go in so far, and that will then give you the different sort of heights Castle tees are available in, which go into the ground only so far. And again, that gives you a consistency of different heights, which might suit certain golf clubs. For me though, I tend to like wooden T-pegs, but I'm going to show you today what the benefits are when we're hitting some shots with wooden or plastic. There are some weird and wonderful things out there on the market at the moment. You can get what they call brush tees with a brush on the top, anti-slice tees with tripods on the top. So there's some weird and wonderful things to choose from, but have to be a bit careful. Some of them are not conforming to the game of golf in terms of tournament play. And some of them claim that you hit the ball further, etc., etc. Me personally, traditional wooden T-peg is fine. It does the job for us. So be careful how you sort of interpret certain things. But the good thing is to try a few pegs out and find out which one you feel fairly confident in using. What I'm going to discuss with you now, if that's okay, is the different heights that we have to use pegs for different clubs, and how high we should tee the ball up. First one is an iron, hitting an iron off a tee. Your iron face has got a sweet spot on there, which is generally in the central part of the club face. Just here my finger is pointing. So in theory, when we are teeing a ball up with an iron, we don't want to be teeing it up very high at all. We want to be teeing it down extremely low, so we're catching that sweet spot area. And what you've also got to remember when you hit an iron is you hit an iron on a descending blow, not an upward blow, but a descending blow. So we want to be able to get the peg low enough to encourage good spin, a good strike, and hitting that middle of that club face. If it's teed too high, then you're likely to sort of end up hitting the golf ball in the higher part of the club face here, not using the grooves of the club. The spin is very erratic, won't feel very nice, and the ball will deflate and not go very far and affect your ball flight. So make sure you're teeing your irons at very short or low. You can get Castle tees that are designed that are also very low in its size. I tend to like to use like I said earlier on, the wooden broken peg. For me, that's just as good, does the job nicely. I'll demonstrate using the short peg with an 8 iron. So we want it to go right into the ground, just showing the head of the peg, just above the blades of grass. And for me, that's perfect for an iron. You do get occasional golfers who like to hit the ball off the deck, off the floor, and that's fine. I'm one of these. I always say to golfers, why you make it hard for yourself, tee the ball up, give yourself a little bit of elevation, and it'll help with your strikes and your ball flight. But each to their own. It's what you're comfortable with at the end of the day. So I've got an 8 iron here. I'm just going to hit it off a very short peg. There we go. I felt the connection was nice off the club face, hit the sweet spot, produced the shot that I wanted. And that was with a short wooden broken tee peg. So always worth collecting them if you're seeing them on the floor. The other thing about hitting an iron, I'll demonstrate this from some earlier on shots, is that they leave some markings on your club, at the bottom of your club here. And you can see here I've got sort of 3 markings here where, just to sort of demonstrate to you, the last one there was kind of central. I've mishit one here, look a little bit off the toe, and there's one here a little bit off the heel. And it's always a good way of showing also if the tee marks it at an angle, if you've had poor swing path or poor striking, and it can give a bit of feedback to you when you're playing sometimes. So wooden tees will leave a little bit of a paint mark. It'll come off, but it's a great way of seeing where you've struck the golf ball from. So another good reason why wooden tee pegs for me are very handy. So that's hitting an iron. You can use these short castles like I mentioned earlier on as well if you want to tee that down nice and low. And then coming on to things like your hybrid or your fairway wood, 3 wood, 5 wood, or a rescue wood or hybrid. Again, we want to be teeing these down very low, and the reasoning for that is because these clubs, or the modern fairway wood particularly now, is much more lower profile, and the club face, the centre of gravity is much lower. So whereas years and years ago the club face used to be much deeper, now they've really come down and they're much lower to the ground. So we don't want to be teeing a ball up at a height that ends up you getting underneath the golf ball with a fairway wood. So again, we want to tee this down fairly low where the sweet spot is. Just that area there. So again, either a broken wooden peg, a small castle tee, like so. And that will help again encourage you to get that strike in the middle of the club face. What you've got to be very careful of if you tee it up too high with a fairway wood or your hybrid, it's very easy with the club being a lower profile face to get underneath the golf ball and produce a real skied, or what we call a skied shot, which is a very high shot, no distance, ball just goes straight up in the air. And that's what you've got to be very, very careful of. So make sure you're teeing these down nice and low, very similar to an iron. This time I'm going to use an orange castle tee, which is very short on this occasion. I'll demonstrate this fairway wood shot to you. Again, we just really want it to be just above the surface of the grass. Just that little bit of elevation, not much more than that. There we go. And it's probably just almost in level with the top of the wood. So I'm not above the surface of the wood on this occasion. So I'm just in my ball position. And I'm just looking at taking the ball nice and clean off the peg, nice clean connection. There we go, a nice connection. Again, if you're using wooden pegs, another benefit with wooden pegs, they tend to leave some marks at the bottom, and again that can give you a bit of feedback about what's going on in your golf swing. So that's hitting a fairway wood or a hybrid. Now we get on to a driver, and for me tee pegs and drivers really important to get the right height if you want to maximise your distance, get the best ball flight, and also maybe encourage straighter tee shots too. So I tend to use a wooden peg for the driver that's quite long, as you can see. I tend to like the Pride tees where they've got little markers on the bottom and you can put them into the ground at the right height, and that helps you get the ball in the right sort of place. You can use your castle tees again, or plastic tees. You can get these pink pegs which are a lot taller, or the orange ones like this, which are quite tall. I think the most important thing is with your driver though, is that half of your golf ball is above the surface of the driver. And you can see now with modern drivers, with the heads much bigger, also the club faces are much deeper. You want to make sure half of your golf ball is above the surface of that wood, okay? We don't want it really to go any lower than that. There are occasions you might want to do that, and I'll explain that to you in a moment. But half the golf ball is always a good little marker there. And the reason we do that is with the driver, it's completely different to hitting an iron. We're hitting on that upward swing. We're catching the ball on the upswing. We don't want to be hitting the driver on the downswing, and if you do that with that height peg, you're likely to sky it or pop it straight up in the air. And that's where golfers sometimes get confused about when they start popping a few up in the air, that they think, oh, I'm teeing the ball up too high. I tend to find most of the time it's not necessarily because they're teeing the ball up too high, it's because their swing technique is making them hit down with their driver, and that encourages you to get underneath the golf ball. So really important that height's correct and that your swing technique's in a way that you're hitting that ball on your upswing. It's with the club's bottoming out and starting to come up is where you want to be hitting that golf ball. So really important tee peg height with the driver. Now if you're teeing your driver up at the correct height, you're tending to produce the right sort of spin on the golf ball and encouraging the right kind of trajectory. I just mentioned about teeing the ball down low with the driver. Someone like Tiger Woods over the years has teed his down fairly low for a driver, and has always done that. Now, most golfers I tend to find, or tour players, like to tee their driver up high. The only time I tee mine down a little bit lower is if I want to play a bit of a fade, let's say on a dogleg hole, which is left to right. I might tee mine down a little lower, and what that does is encourage me to strike down a little bit more with the driver, produce more backspin, which is easier to fade the golf ball. I'll lose a bit of length, I'll have a little bit of a different trajectory, but it does encourage my fade to happen a little bit easier. So that's the only time I might put my driver down a lot lower with the tee peg, is if I'm playing that fade. Some golfers have asked me in the past, should I tee my ball down lower if we're playing into a strong wind? And answer to that would be no. Teeing the ball down lower makes you hit down more at the golf ball. That produces more backspin, produces a more of a balloon trajectory flight, and that makes you potentially lose length. And obviously into a wind, you don't really want the ball climbing quickly. You lose a lot of length very quickly. So I always say to golfers into the wind, make sure you tee up the ball the same height. The more you kind of hit on the upswing, the more top spin you kind of sometimes, or less spin you produce, and you produce that stronger, boring flight, as we call it, through the air. So never tee it down lower when you're hitting into a wind. I always find that's a negative thing to do, and it produces poor spin. So hope that's been an informative one today on tee pegs. Don't be frightened to play around with different things and find one that's suitable for you. It's all about experimenting, I find, with tee pegs, and there's no sort of right and wrong in some cases with whether you use your wooden, plastic, or whatever it might be that you feel comfortable with. But as long as you're finding you're doing it consistently and it's producing good strikes and it's maximizing your length, then that's a positive for us. If anyone of you got requests and you would like us to send in to us, you might want us to cover a certain topic or thing about the golf swing or a fault that you might be having, please message us and we'll try and produce the video for you. I hope it's been informative today. Look forward to seeing you next time. Please subscribe to our page, Leon Warne PGA Professional, on YouTube, and hopefully show you some more videos as we go along. Until next time, have a good day. Thank you.